that they just passed and sent over to us. So we need to make a technical adjustment, increasing that by $18.8 million. The biggest difference there was in other expenses. I believe it was all contractual. They did have a $5 million reduction to salaries and benefits, but they did have a $23 million increase to other expenses, primarily, again, in contracts. So the net effect was the $18.8 million. The next item on the list is sales tax administrative fees for our sales tax collections. These are administrative fees collected by the State of Ohio Department of Taxation, $3 million, $3,020,914. The next item on the list, $3,256,048. These are bed tax distributions for Medical Mart, 1% of our bed tax that we collect. Item number 4 on the list, $1.3 million, $1,302,419. Again, bed tax distributions to the Rock Hall, that's 0.4% of our bed tax collections. Item number 5, $1,953,629. Again, this is bed tax distributions to our sports facility fund, that's 0.6% of our bed tax collections. The next two items, items 6 and 7, $6.7 million and $25,772,000. Those are our Metro Health subsidies that were duplicated in the system. So we're taking them out. That both of those together are the Metro Health subsidy of $32,400,000. I believe it's $32,472,000. Items 8 and 9 are our normal pay reserve for the 27th pay that happens every 11 years. We're just simply moving accounting units, so we want to classify those properly. Item number 10 and 11 are offsets. In the past, we had the DTAC fund for both the fiscal office and the prosecutor's office combined into one, and this is our effort to segregate the two again into two separate pots, one that the treasurer's office will use and one that the prosecutor's office will use. And number 11 is the Hilton Hotel debt, $6.7 million. It's correct in the financials, but it was incorrect in the legislation that was proposed, so this corrects the legislation number. Those are my technical adjustments that I have for 2022 and 2023.
So, Director, which one is the one that's new?
The 18.8 for Board of Developmental Disabilities. We just received that budget last week.
Okay. And, Director, am I correct that on item number 2 on the sales tax administration that there's no budgetary impact in that we get additional revenue on one side and then we have this expense on the other side? Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilman.
Okay. Any questions by my colleagues on the technical amendments? Ms. Conwell.
Through the chair to Mr. Palfrey-Howitz, for the number 12 for 2022, there's no debt down there for the Hilton. Well, why?
Because it's listed properly in the 2022 budget. In the 2023 budget, that piece was missed.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, the legislation is correct for 2022. It was incorrect for 2023. But the roll-up documents that show the revenue and expense, it's included there properly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Councilman Sweeney. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Director Palfrey-Howitz. I'm going to get better, but I did it phonetically here. I just want to say thank you. It's my first budget here, and the way you presented, the way you prepared, the way you answered our questions.
Thank you.
And somebody, I don't use this too often, a subject matter expert. It's just evident. So thank you for being the person that you are, and I look forward to continue working with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Councilman Sweeney.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask Trevor Mackler to present the amendments that came out of the council process, which, just for the record, do include a few amendments that were presented by the administration that were non-technical in nature that we also agreed with.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Trevor Mackler, County Council staff. The sheet that we will be going over has the yellow highlight at the top with general fund. As Chairman Miller referenced, this is what we usually consider as the council amendment list. And we can go over line by line, and then if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. The first line is the sales tax revenue adjustment. When the county executive first submitted his budget a couple months ago, we have subsequently received a couple more months of sales tax revenue. It's higher than I think the administration originally projected, and we worked with OBM to come up with these two numbers for 2022 and 2023. As a reminder, council does not appropriate revenue, but we use this as a guiding principle in terms of appropriating the expenditures. So working with Walter and his team, we think this is a conservative enough number where for 2022, 2023, we can adjust the revenue projections. And you see that's over $9 million for the 2 years. The next set is actual expenditures that would amend the legislation that Councilman Miller referenced. The first one we have discussed in this committee a couple times is the Veteran Services Commission. This number of the $250 million gets you to the required Ohio Revised Code 0.25 mils. They're a separate board, and under the statute, they get a certain dollar amount, and this would correct the dollar amount that they would get funded for each year. Information technology, you can see it's the first line is $600,000 per year. That is for 4 IT positions. Those 4 IT positions are ERP related, and that includes, I believe, 2 already that they've hired since the budget was recommended to County Council from the executive. So this would provide funding for that. The next one is $500,000 per year for IT. This is to fund a portion of the 5-year capital plan that Director Johnson presented to you during his department's hearing. The entire 5-year capital plan will be included in the budget projections moving forward, but typically with our 5-year capital plan, we appropriate some dollars to begin that process. So this provides some resources to IT for their 5-year capital plan.
So I would just note for the record that Vice President Stevens has joined the meeting.
The next item is internal audit. This dollar amount reflects what the audit committee approved on behalf of that department. This provides enough resources to allow them to go out and use a contractor for an IT audit that she presented to the council during her budget hearing. This was also included in the executive's recommended list of budget amendments since he introduced his 22-2023 budget. Inspector General, it's $160,000 per year. This covers his current staffing levels. At that snapshot of page 12, when the administration created their recommended budget, they did have some vacancies that they have since fulfilled, and this would allow them to cover their current staffing levels. And the Inspector General Griffin presented this request during his budget hearing. Board of Elections, this is more adjusting it for 2023, reducing it in 2023 and increasing it in 2022. Public Works, they're looking at to see if they can actually install the carpet that was discussed during committee 1 year sooner. There's some other work that needs to be done at the building before they do that. So this just takes it away from 2023 and increases the 2022 budget. They planned on doing this as part of the 5-year capital plan, but this moves it up 1 year. Hopefully Public Works is able to complete this work on time. The sheriff, this was discussed heavily when Sheriff Island presented during his budget hearing. This increases the number of budgeted COs at currently 650. This increases it by 40 to 690. As was discussed, they are currently budgeted for 725, but they haven't been able to get close to that. This provides some additional dollars based on the efforts that the sheriff and his team are trying to attract and retain additional corrections officers. So this would provide him some additional flexibility up to 690 with the full understanding that he could come back for additional dollars. 100,000 for the clerk of courts line. This is to increase the dollars for Crime Stoppers. For those that aren't familiar with Crime Stoppers, they currently get, I believe, $1 on every court case that is filed. The number of court cases has significantly decreased over COVID, so their revenue has decreased. They went to Councilman Gallagher and requested to provide some funding for the next 2 years to make up for the difference that they've experienced. Jim Boyle's in the back if there's some additional questions on that. He's done a lot of research and worked with the clerk of court staff to ensure that these dollars would be provided.
For the record, Councilwoman Simon has joined the meeting.
Next one is related to the progressive field lease agreement for the Cleveland Guardians. This council approved the lease extension with the baseball team last Tuesday. This would, or a week and a half ago, I think, this provides the additional general fund amount that would be needed as part of the bond issuance to the tune of $2.55 million per year. This was also discussed during the budget hearings. Planning Commission, $243,000 for 2022 and $214,000 for 2023. The director presented during her budget presentation that they had since hired existing staff from the time the snapshot was taken for their biannual budget, and this would provide those dollars as she requested during her presentation. The dog kennel, which falls under Public Works in terms of the budget, so the director of the dog kennel did not present this, but subsequently reached out to council regarding this request. The deputy dog warden was a position that was removed from her budget because of the point in time that the budget was created. She has since fulfilled that position and is requesting an additional position for a behavioral health coordinator for the dogs that are at the dog kennel. So there is one additional FTE included in there. Prosecutor's office. Prosecutor O'Malley came in and requested that his budget be fully restored, including all vacancies and parity. In 2022, council here is recommending that 3.2 million be restored and 2.6 million in 2023. This provides close to 75% of what Prosecutor O'Malley was asking for. This number was discussed with the prosecutor's office since his budget hearing, and he is okay based off his discussions with the council president with this recommendation. And hopefully this provides enough dollars where it wouldn't be requiring an additional appropriation over the next 2 years. Juvenile Court, this is the general fund portion. There is a corresponding Health and Human Services levy additional appropriation listed below. As you may recall, Judge O'Malley came in and requested that an additional $8.8 million per year based off what they wanted to seek in their proposed budget versus what was included in the executive recommended budget. And sitting down with council, the number that was derived here, including the Health and Human Services levy portion, we took their second quarter projection, how much they were going to spend in 2021, and then added a 2% increase based off what you heard Juvenile Court say in committee, of that their expenses are increasing for the detention center. So this is a starting point. Hopefully this would provide enough resources where they won't be required to come back for an additional appropriation next year. But we did base this off their 2021 spend as of the second quarter projections. Next line is transition. Council in 2014 passed an ordinance that would provide dollars for the transition of the county executive. This is in here in the county code. Every 4 years, it's required that it be included in the recommended budget of $250,000. So this would provide dollars for the county executive-elect after the November general election to hire a couple staff. And this is in line with what council passed in the county code 6 or 7 years ago now. And that's $250,000 one time for 2022. Tuition reimbursement, there's also a corresponding Health and Human Services levy decrease. It's $1.2 million per year. What this does is reduce the first year by half. This will allow enough time for the legislation to come forward to county council to discuss in committee and ultimately consider approval of that legislation. We anticipate that legislation will come sometime first quarter of next year. So any reimbursement won't likely happen until the fall semester of next year. And we discussed this with the county executive, and he's in agreement with that proposed timeline. Development, as council knows, we give Global Cleveland currently an annual subsidy. This increases that annual subsidy to $200,000. It's $75,000 increase per year. With the influx of workload that the Global Cleveland has witnessed over the last couple months, this would provide for additional translators that they've seen the need for. You were all emailed their request. And then the final general fund number this was presented as part of the executive's recommended budget amendments. This is to just correctly account for the prosecutor's license for the LexisNexis contract and the law department budget of a little over $3,000 per year. Grand total before you factor in the sales tax revenue, it's a little over $12 million for 2022 and a little over $10.5 million for 2023. If you factor in the sales tax revenue projected increase, you're a little over $13 million total general fund for the 2 years increase. Going on to the Health and Human Services levy, additional amendments. Department of Children and Family Services. This is for additional social workers that were removed as part of the vacancy reduction. Currently, there are 453 social workers that are budgeted for the 2022-2023 biannual budget. This would increase it to 490 with the hopes that we can exceed that. But as presented by the director, she said it might be a difficult challenge just to even get to the budget at 453 amount. The Office of Reentry, there is $124,000 for 2022 and $126,000 for 2023. This is to provide funding for the recently hired director. At the point of the time the budget was created from the administration, the director was vacant, and so therefore the director wasn't included in the recommended budget, so this makes that correction. Family, Children, and First Council, it's $125,000 per year to fund an additional school for closing the achievement gap. This would be included as part of the bid process for the other schools. Juvenile Court and tuition reimbursement we discussed above. This is just the Health and Human Services levy funded portions of that. Again, both were funded from the general fund and the Health and Human Services levy. In terms of the other funds, very quickly, there's the Board of Revision. This would provide 2 temporary boards. This was part of the decision item that the director or the administrator asked for. And this is the $2 amounts that would be needed for 2022 and 2023 with the expectation that the number of appeals to the Board of Revision are going to increase significantly based off the recent reappraisal. The Rta Bus Subsidy Pass, this increases the monthly amount for county employees from, I believe they're currently at $37, and this would take it to about $75. Joe Nani is in the audience too, and he could come up and briefly speak to this if there are questions about this. This was also presented briefly when the CEO of RTA was in the Rules Committee. She is actually looking at potentially lowering the amount of the monthly bus passes for similar programs like this. So this could potentially fund the entire amount for county employees if RTA is willing to work with the county to lower that monthly pass amount. Finally, the last other funds budget was the solid waste. This was also included in the executive's recommended budget amendments. This is $13,000 for 2022 to align with what the Solid Waste Board approved as part of their budget for 2022. In total, other funds is $625,000 for 2022 and $875,000 for 2023, including the HHS levy, the general fund, and the general fund expenditures. You're approximately at $21 million total.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation and for all the work that you've done in cataloging and organizing this information for us. I would turn to my colleagues and see if anyone has any questions or comments on the proposed amendments. Councilwoman Conwell.
Through the chair to Trevor. For the Office of Reentry, that funding for the director, was it for more than one or staff or just the director's salary?
That funding is for the director's salary and benefits.
Thank you.
And at page 12, when the budget was, when the base budget was created, the director's position was vacant, from my understanding.
And the increase in the RTA subsidy, is this the additional, the $200,000 we're going to add to what we already give them? What is that total amount that once we add the $200,000, what would that be?
Councilwoman, let me see if Joe might have the total dollar amount on what this would increase the subsidy to in terms of total dollar amount. I know what it does per employee per month, but I don't have the grand total of what this would take the total subsidy amount.
The increase from what we're, Joe Nani, County Council, the increase for the additional amount would be $158,688. We currently, I believe, pay for the existing subsidy $114,912.
So we're adding those totals, 114 and 158?
Correct, which would be $273,600. Right.
Yeah, Councilwoman, if I may add to that, as a reminder, additional employees can sign up for this. So the reason why you see 200,000 here instead of just the 158 is we're assuming that additional employees would sign up for this benefit.
Okay. I had one other question. In regards, let's go to the Department of Children and Family Services, the increase in the social workers. I remember the 453 number, but I don't remember what she stated they have.
I believe at that point in time, and perhaps Walter might have a better number, but I think at the point the director presented, I think she was at 426 at the time that she presented in front of council.
And from the previous budget, what was the total number that she needs to effectively run that department? Do you remember what it was?
I believe you asked that question during the
But I don't
committee.
remember the answer.
She said her optimal number for the number of social workers, I believe, was 525.
But the agreement is 490 between the administration and council, with the option, if we should be that lucky, we could go up to 525.
Provide additional if needed. That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilman Sweeney, and followed by Baker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Budget component of County Council, thank you. First, I just want to thank you for keeping me up to speed throughout the entire budget process, and your presentation today was, as expected, very thorough, and it's probably one of your most enjoyable things you do is testify in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Just one question on the informational technology. I thought we had more of a discussion on more individuals being hired instead of the 4. Can we talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I can. That's correct. Your memory is correct, Councilman Sweeney. Director Johnson, at the point of his presentation, presented to you 15 vacancies as a request to the tune of $1.5 million approximately per year. The 4 IT positions that are listed here are ERP related. The other 11 were ERP, but IT related. So, and since he presented, they actually have brought on 2 of those 4 ERP positions, and in discussions with the director, I think he understood why it would be ERP related now, in hopes that he could potentially come back and request for the additional 11. But you're right, it was 15 as presented in committee, but these 4 specifically are just for ERP.
Thank you for clarifying that. Just when I looked through the whole document, didn't make any sense, but now I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And they are,
I would add to that that IT is a department that historically has had a high degree of turnover, and particularly recently, it's been very challenging to fill IT positions. And so we actually think that the additional money that we've provided here with that money, that we could probably fill all 15 positions if he can find the people, and because there would be enough other resignations and retirements to balance it off. So we think this dollar amount is going to be able to enable them to hire as many of these people that they can find and get them on board.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can add, those 4 just quickly for the record. One is the ERP administrator, which Director Johnson has filled. I think he started a week and a half ago. 2 are an ERP information systems analyst. I think he filled one of those from my understanding, leaving 1 additional. And then the final one is 1 ERP financial systems lead, which I might have the incorrect one of which one he filled, but those were the 4 total positions.
Full explanation, and thank you.
Councilwoman Baker.
That was my question.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Answered it very fully. I appreciate it.
Okay, any other, Ms. Conwell?
Yes, I forgot one. Through the chair to Trevor. Crime Stoppers. Okay, I understand that you said they get $1 every court case, but what was do we provide them anything previous to that, or we're just giving them help this go round?
Yeah, and I think Jim's going to walk up to briefly touch upon that.
Jim Boyle, County Council staff. Through the chair to Councilwoman Conwell. Crime Stoppers, actually, it's under the Ohio Revised Code, there is something called a Citizens Reward Program. Crime Stoppers is a nonprofit entity. The Ohio Revised Code allows a county to contract with one entity for the Citizens Reward Program. That is the Crime Stoppers program. Under the law, so what the county gets on each criminal case filing, they get $1 on each filing. So if you look on the court docket, you'll see a $1 surcharge for Crime Stoppers. Also, under a separate section of the Ohio Revised Code, the Crime Stoppers gets 25% of any forfeited proceeds or cash from seized property. And in this situation, the Crime Stoppers is dealing with a somewhat of a kind of a triple whammy, if that makes sense. One is that the criminal case filings are down significantly over the last couple of years. So, and then correspondingly, next the forfeitures there'll be a lag time between the filings, and the forfeitures will take place at the resolution of the case. There's also then going to be a corresponding decrease in the amount of forfeited funds. And then, as we've all heard from the testimony from the medical examiner as well as from media reports, the incidents of violent crime are up somewhat significantly over previous times. So the need for the reward money is higher while the amount of money flowing into the rewards program has decreased.
Thank you for that, but I still want to be clear. So was it solely funded on its own prior to us giving this, or do we always put in money?
This is, at least as far as I'm aware, the first time that we're putting in money.
That's what I thought.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you.
If we did, it was
Over a decade ago, but I know we provided some money.
Was that on the other side?
Yeah.
Certainly while my term on county council, this is the first I'm aware of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions about the amendments? So at this point, I would like to ask if somebody would like to offer a motion that we accept the substitute version, which would incorporate both the administration technical amendments and the amendments that came out of the council process, and make that the resolution before the committee.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the proposed substitute. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm over here. Thanks. I wanted to make sure that my question, I'm sorry this is late, I don't see it on the list I wanted to make sure our civil law department's salaries were commensurate with the prosecutors' civil attorneys, and I'm told that was balanced out and there was parity there, but I don't see it on this list. The only thing I see is the Lexus contract, and this, I guess, through the chair to Trevor McAleer.
Mr. Chair, Councilwoman Simon, I know our special counsel, Brendan Doyle, had conversations with Greg. I think, from my understanding, and I can follow up with you, that they were able to absorb any adjustments that they needed to do. They didn't require an additional appropriation. So that's why it would not be an amendment to the budget. That was my understanding. But I would like to follow up with you on that, because I know Brendan had the conversations with Greg. I did not.
Okay, so we can follow up, and then if there's an adjustment, we can
Yeah, and I know
that.
they've got at least one, actually probably I think 2 vacancies now, but I will follow up with you on that.
Because we're increasing the prosecutor's budget, almost what they asked for. I just want to make sure that there's always going to be parity between the civil divisions. So, thank you.
So if we need to make an amendment, we could do it on December 7th on the final passage, and Councilman Tron is
Yeah,
next.
Simon, as I recall, when they testified that they thought that they had the numbers right for their salary base, the numbers that were being increased for the prosecutor was for head count as opposed to parity. At least that's what I recall both their testimony.
Go ahead, Sonny.
Through the chair to Councilman Tron, that's correct. However, after looking at the sheets, I was looking at it, it was not entirely clear. That's all. I heard the testimony,
Yeah,
but
that's okay. I just thought
thanks.
that.
The data, I'm not sure supported that.
All right.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, we do have a motion and a second to accept the proposed substitute as the version before the committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay, the proposed substitute is accepted and is the version before the committee. Now, the next step would be if somebody could offer a motion to refer the resolution as substituted to the full council. It would go before the full council tomorrow for second reading, and then would be up for final passage on December 2nd. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Simon.
Is there a second?
Second, Conwell.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Councilman Sweeney?
Just the time?
Yeah, this is the time.
Thank you. Trevor, I don't know if you need to be there because you're done with your amendments. That's okay? to say?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I just want to, this is my first budget, and I figured I'd share some thoughts. And to Director Chambers, I just want to thank you for your work. You were given instructions, or not instructions, you were given the responsibility to present the budget, and you did, and I appreciate it. And through the budget process, what Trevor presented, we probably changed about a little more than $1 million on the council side here. And the folks that made the most persuasive presentations, they were Prosecutor's Office, Juvenile Court, Inspector General, and the Planning Commission. They were just saying, this is what I want, and this council responded. I feel a little bit frustrated and a little empty regarding some of the thoughts that I have, and I'm just putting them out there because we're not going to revisit this for 2 years, because it's a 2-year budget in regards to this particular document. We have a whole bunch of time to be able to do stuff. And my 3 little topics were the prevention, the Board of Elections, and a study to see how we're doing. And it's just ironic that the paper put out there, hi, it's been 11 years, and how we're doing. And in that budget, or in that article, it's more about the individuals that are driving this government. And my thought is a deep dive through a public entity, one of the colleges. And are the tax collections better? Is the dog warden more responsive? Is the title bureau longer lines or less lines? And I really want to see how good we're doing. And the one thing that, since I've been here for 10 years, or for 11 months, a lot of folks are saying, what are you doing now, Sweeney? I say, I'm a county council member. They go, what's that? And I'd love to be able to see if we can get the reality of we represent these folks. They know who we are. They're getting our brains, and we help educate them that we're in existence. So that's just a frustration I have. And I hope I don't sound like I'm on a soapbox, but I'm going to take this opportunity to talk because I want to, and I asked the chairman, he said it was okay to do.
Council member, could you please speak a little bit louder into the microphone?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
I should move the microphone closer then. Thank you. So that's just on the, how we're doing in the 11 years that we've been in existence. And on the opioid crisis, I'm stuck on this one because when we had the Adams Board presentation, they do a wonderful job. And when I was first talked about it, it was my understanding that each of the entities that were there were given a certain amount to do prevention. And when the director came up, he said, no, we do it, and we do a good job. And I've heard nothing about it. And there's a little article that came out, 100,000 people. We reached that milestone of not overdoses, deaths from overdoses in our country. 2 weekends ago, we had 12. I talked to my fireman buddies, and they're like, it's still happening. And it's this is really ironic. I watched King Richard, Serena Williams last night, or 2 nights ago. And in that movie, Serena and Venus meet Nancy Reagan playing tennis. And the only thing Nancy Reagan says, just say no to drugs. And you know why? Because it had an impact. And I want to see because I've been saying that for a little while. It's just kind of bizarre. And I want to stay on the soapbox because I think it's something that could be done and be significant and stop building more beds to treat the problem. It's about taking care of it, nipping it in the bud in the beginning. And the last thing I got was the Board of Elections. 26.1% of people voting is not acceptable from my perspective. In the presidential years, we're up to 70. So we know that people will vote. And how do we get them to vote? And the exciting thing, when the director came up, he's like, wow, if you give us more money, we will do it. And then I was told to reach out to him, and we did. And he's like, I want to do it in-house. I'm like, no, I want to broaden it up, put an RFP out. And there was some of the dialogue I had with my colleagues. It's how we do stuff here is, we have an idea. We vet it out. We work with our staff. We work with our administration and the board. And once we get it together, we say, let's do it. For me, I don't mind giving the subject matter, or the experts, the Board of Elections, because it says Cuyahoga County Board of Elections, to say, let's give them an RFP, they can do it, and we can oversight through our committee structure. How you doing, what's the impact? And it's not a 1 year, 2 year, none of this is 3 years. This is long-term stuff that's gonna be, only time will tell if we're having an impact, and the numbers will be real. So I really want to say thank you for listening to me here, and I hope it didn't drown on too long. But when I look at this budget, there's nothing in there for this particular things that I brought up. And I've talked to my chairman, and I was even thinking about, make my big stance and vote no. And Dale said, don't vote no, just keep working. And I said, yes, Mr. Chairman, and that's what I'm doing. So with that, thank you for letting me be part of the budget process, and I look forward to supporting this.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? I'm going to make a couple of comments. First, I'd like to thank the administration and all of my colleagues for working together on this budget and participating in the process. The council indeed wasn't supportive of the administration. A lot of the changes that we recommended were to increase funding for administration programs that we support, such as their initiative to increase the salaries for the corrections officers and other safety personnel, and to put more social workers out there. And regarding the social workers, I would add that I don't think that we're going to spend nearly the amount that's budgeted unless the administration ramps up the effort and does some new and additional things to recruit additional people and to make the job more attractive. And so by supporting this budget with increased funding, we're saying that we strongly encourage them to do that. I would mention that the budget includes a provision for a repayment of $10 million from the HHS levy to the general fund. We're allowing that to remain in the budget, but just for the record to note that because of the money that the general fund has received from the CARES Act and will receive from ARPA, we think that that repayment probably isn't necessary, and it requires a separate fiscal agenda item. And as long as the general fund does reasonably well going forward, we will we will keep that in mind in the future, and that may not be necessary. Overall, not all of the numbers in this budget were the exact numbers that I would have used, but I think that the numbers that are in the budget very well reflect the consensus of the council and what we heard as a whole from the council members. And I would like to particularly compliment Council President Jones for his leadership in working with all the council members and hearing everybody out and supporting an approach that that reflects in the aggregate the consensus of where the council is at. So with that, I believe that this budget provides for the reasonably anticipated expenses for the county for the next 2 years. And if there's no other discussion,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I just want to take a moment and want to again acknowledge you and thank you for again leading another biennial budget and doing a tremendous job. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Through this budget process. And just again acknowledge all of my colleagues and thank you all. We rolled up our sleeves and we did a lot of hard work, a lot of necessary work, and I'm proud of what we have all done here. A few narratives, as our chairman has just stated. Our correctional officers, we are sending the message, and I think we should acknowledge the sheriff because he did stand here and say he's going to work to be creative and push to do the best that he can. And I think he reflects what the charter amendment that the people voted for. He's I think a shining example of what that charter amendment expected out of a sheriff. And to have him stand there and make those comments, I was proud of that moment, and we were able to support what he asked for in this budget. Also for our social workers, we are sending the message, as the chairman has said, that we want aggressive and creative work effort when it comes to our services that we provide in that area. So again, I just thank the administration as well. We have worked well with them over this time period, and I think we have set a strong course for the next 2 years. So again, just thank you to everyone.
So, Councilman Schron.
And I think that if you go back to the very beginning of the county council, the very first change we made was to make a 2-year budget. I think that the merits of doing that, to go from an annual budget to a 2-year budget to coincide and parallel the state's 2-year budget, I think your leadership on this council as far as running this proves the value of having gone with a 2-year budget. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree that the 2-year budget has stood the test of time at County Council. So hearing no further discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to, for clarification, we did receive a motion to refer the full item to the council as substituted, and we also received a second. So for confirmation, can we get an overall vote? Just one more time.
That's, I was about to call for that.
Okay.
And I was just about to say that this is the biennial budget, and therefore I was going to ask you to do a roll call on the motion to refer the biennial budget resolution as substituted, resolution 2021-0238 to the full council.
Calling the roll, Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Tuma,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Schron,
Yes.
Ms. Conwell,
Yes.
Ms. Turner is absent, Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Simon,
Yes.
Council President Jones, Ms. Baker, I'm sorry, and then Council President Jones. We did it.
did
You did
vote.
it already.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
You have a quorum, as well as everyone voted in the affirmative.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any miscellaneous business? Hearing none, and there being no further business, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much for your time, effort, and assistance.